We are
Now,
live.
do the Instagram people know that we swapped over?
I didn't really tell everybody, but everybody's kind of been watching YouTube, and I told them that I was just going to keep running YouTube, and everybody agreed.
Yeah.
And everybody agreed that they liked it more. But I do need to put out, like, I need to make up, like, something to put out on Instagram to say, hey,
It's a
we
little
moved.
more official.
Yeah, that way, especially Tuesdays with Tom. And if you look down the little bottom corner there, I've actually got it. It says Tuesdays with Tom.
I see that.
Yeah.
Like,
Woo. We're growing up, man. We're
Can I make
we're
this
going
even
somewhere.
bigger? I guess that's about as big as I can make the picture. That's okay though.
I leave mine inside my browser small just because I don't really care as much. I'm looking more at what people are writing in the stream
Right.
and things like that. So
Well, that's why I need it big so I can read it.
right.
So, yeah. So I'll have to put a projectile into that and decock it. So I was thinking,
You get to shoot a 177 into your couch.
no, that's a 22 actually.
Oh, you get to, well.
I got a pellet trap. I got a pellet trap 3 feet to my right.
Oh, well, there you go. You're all set. Yeah,
I'm not worried.
Like I said, man,
and behind this secret curtain back here, I have a couple things of some ballistic gel stacked, so we can pop one into that if we have to.
Yeah, so like I said, I was looking at the Air Arms Pro Sport, and I was looking at the TX 200. What's going on, Tim? Mike? And I was looking at the TX 200.
Oh, I can see that real good here. Oh, this is better.
MK3, and everybody was out, and I want walnut in an Air Arms, right? Like, I don't want a beach stock. I want a walnut stock. So I kept looking around. I couldn't find them, and finally I just messaged Tom, and I was like, hey, can you get me one of those Air Arms? And he said, I can get you the TX, or I think he said he can get me the TX 200, but it was in beach. And he said, but there are some coming in middle of May, and you'll be able to get a walnut. So I'm going to order one of those as well. I've just got this, like, I want to stockpile guns that I can hand down to my son. And they're actually, they're actually worth something. They're not, a Hotson that, I mean, yeah, but they're not super nice guns. Like, I want some really nice gun case guns. And
HW97 and a TX or
yep. So I've got the 97K coming. And then, like I said, I've got a line on 95 that I think I'm going to pick up as well. So that way I'll have an underlever, a brake barrel, both from Viroc. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the Air Arms TX 200 and maybe even a Pro Sport. Just because why not? Because they're guns.
Toys. It's all about toys.
It is all about toys. I love toys. We all love toys. That's what we're here, right?
So I seen the other day you were sorting your projectiles.
I was. And let me tell you, 177 sorting is a meticulous task.
Welcome to my world.
That's all that I sorted so far, and I got bored with it.
Yeah.
So I did buy myself a set of tweezers, some big ones, so my bulky hands can get a hold of them. And I just found, like, picking one out of the tin and setting it onto the scale, and then I pick it off the scale with the tweezers. But this is one thing, and that's a great topic to talk about, because I kept everything that was 10.3 anything. Unless the scale went back and forth between, like, say, 10.38 and 10.4, I would discard that one. But as long as it stayed below 3 or 10.38, and it didn't go any lower than 10.3, then I kept them. Anything else? So
First of all, what does your scale do? Does your scale do 10.12, 10.14, or is it 12, 13, 14? Is it that fine?
it appears that it's 12, 14, 16.
Okay, so is mine.
Yeah, so it jumps by twos as the secondary, the tenths. So, and I thought about like trying to be a little more like, okay, listen, why shouldn't I keep 10.28, but yet I'm keeping 10.24 or 3/4, but I just wanted them in that 3 range, right?
Well,
So,
what I generally find is acceptable with some of the heavier weight ones. Some of the lighter weight pellets, when I was shooting like 7.3 grains or 7.78 express, then I'll go and I'll get it exact. I'll pick a number and I'll just all of those numbers. That's the match pellet.
yep,
Everything else is a practice pellet after that.
yep,
If it's just a regular match and it's a heavier pellet like the 10-3s, what I'll do is I'll take a 10 a 10-3-0 to a 10-3-8.
yep.
And I'll keep all of those.
That's exactly what it's in right now.
There's probably not a need to go finer than that. I wouldn't think.
Well, that is good information to know. So what's going on, guys? Thanks everybody for joining. Sorry, we were caught up in a little bit of a conversation, but yes, Mike, I actually ordered a Vyrock HW 97K today, and that is in the beach stained walnut. I wish they came in walnut on the Vyrocks, but they don't. And then I'm going to be picking up a HW95, and I've also got an order in for a TX200 Mark III. So I'm full circling back around to the brake barrels and underlevers.
To the good stuff.
Yeah, I've got so many PCP guns. That's the thing. Is like, don't get me wrong, they're fun and they're accurate and they're convenient, but yet there's a part of me that's like, I need to be shooting the stuff that I shot when I was growing up, and that's fun to shoot. So
a variety is the spice of anything, I guess.
yeah.
We have. I got a bunch of stuff. I got CO2 stuff and springers, and
I've got one CO2 gun. It's my Crosman Model 114, but I'm having a hard time filling my CO2. I mean, as far as like bulk fill CO2. I mean, I've got other CO2s that I can, but they're mostly replica handguns. So
I got the feelers out of one or two guys that I know out for a Crossman 600.
There you go. eBay.
And I always wanted one of those, and my dad has one that's in pristine condition, but that's in a walnut display case, and that comes out to show off to people every once in a while, and that's it. It goes back in the box. I just want one that's been maybe knocked around a little, so that I'm not afraid to actually use it.
There's all kinds of on eBay right now.
Yeah, not for $56 though.
No, that one's a bidding gun.
Okay.
I'm
going to say
they're up to about 160-ish range.
Well, if you want one in working condition, you're probably going to go 300 plus, depending on the condition. That's about what they're going for.
And it's funny because last night we were talking about
with a pristine one being about $600.
Wow. Yeah, we were talking about some of those vintage guns last night, and I was talking about the Trapmaster, and $1,300 for a BB gun.
Yep.
Oh, dude. Oh, man. I don't need to spend that kind of money on a BB gun. If I had $1,300 burn a hole in my pocket, I'd buy another Impact. What's going on? Joe Nolan's in the house. Sam Houston, what's going on, man?
Yeah, but I did a test and I recorded it actually, and my phone battery ran out on the good part of the test that I really wanted to show on film and to everybody. But I went and took my Thomas and my Steyr on Saturday, and I shot both Air Arms 10.3s and Field Target Trophy 8.64s. And I shot them both for group, shooting them out of the tin and all the dies that I resized them at. And it does make a difference. And I found that mostly when the ones that were resized, regardless on what die it was, they all went to the right as compared to just plucking them all out of the tin at random. So that was one thing I picked up from it. And there was one or two dies that did group better than all the rest. And I did 10 shot groups out of each, so we can determine, it wasn't just a fluke shot here and there of 3 or 5 shots. I made sure that there was enough of a group that it was worth it. And there was one or two that stood out, actually. Nice. And I'm kind of sorry that I didn't get them on film, particularly with the Steyr, because I got a 10-shot group in the Steyr that I'm going to say you could put inside that wrench for 10 shots. So
at how far?
55 yards.
Nice.
And there wasn't a lot of wind. There was maybe a little bit left and right, but it wasn't, when a pellet went out that far, it wasn't because of the wind. And that I know, because I was on a bench and I aimed at the same spot every time. So,
yep. Yeah, isn't it funny?
Didn't work out footage-wise, but yeah.
Isn't it funny that we sight in our guns on a bench, but yet we go to Field Target or HFT and we don't touch a bench?
Yep, but you know what? I want to make sure the gun is shooting where it should shoot.
Right.
If I mess up, then it's me. If I know the gun,
no,
some of the luck that I've had in the past at Field Target matches where, I'm shooting and I'm missing, and it's like, it's not me. And then I go back to the bench and I shoot it at whatever distance it was, or my zero, and I find that it's off. Why is that either? So I found that the biggest variable with any of this is the food that you give it. It's the ammunition.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
You see guys, I got 20 shots right in the same hole, and I got 1 or 2 of them that are this far out. It's not the gun. It's not a foul barrel. If it was a foul barrel, every third shot would be going in a different direction someplace.
It looked like a shotgun pattern.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then it's time to clean the barrel. But when you have 20 of them going in one hole and you have a flyer here and a flyer there, that's your ammunition.
Right. So I'm actually kicking around the idea of, so I've got Impact M3 on its way. We're just waiting for them to come in. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not stressed about it, but I'm thinking about sticking my 35 cal barrel back on to my other Impact and seeing what that thing will do at 100 yards. So I thought that was.
As I mentioned the other day, extreme bench rest dates were announced. I believe, if my memory serves me, it was October 6th through 10th or 6th through 11 or something like that.
Yep.
So for the guys interested.
Oh, I'll be there.
And I just got the schedule for my club here on Long Island, and we have a silhouette match and a bench rest match scheduled for our itinerary over the summer.
Right on.
So we're going to dib and dabble in both of those.
Lucky 7 Ammo says he's shooting raindrops. Yeah, it started out misting this morning here in Michigan where I am at, and cleared right up. And I don't think we're going to get rain again until Thursday and Friday. But you know how that is. You know how weathermen are. One day it's going to be pouring rain, and the next it's, you know.
Well, it rained here yesterday. It's going to rain here again tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's going to rain Saturday and Sunday. So I'm looking at next Thursday, a week from this coming Thursday, I am headed to North Carolina for the Carolina Classic.
Oh,
so
right.
I'm looking at the weather down the road on when I'm going to get to the range, maybe one more time, and it looks like Friday's going to be it. And after that, I'm out of luck. So
hey, is Jeff in here? Jeff, you in here? Blue Phoenix? Because I think hopefully Jeff will have his gun by Sunday, and then Sunday I'd like to go to the range and actually start sighting in my gun. That's assuming that my Hawk Sidewinder comes in, because I'm still waiting on the Sidewinder. I'm running the first focal plane scope, excuse me, on my BFA right now, but it's only because it's all I had. And I didn't want to take the Optizon off of my Texan because it's already sighted in. So sighting in a Texan is not as fun as it sounds.
Got a little bit of recoil and
takes a lot of air.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually waiting for another inline regulator to come into high pressure pneumatics. And then I'm going to probably pick up a secondary tank and then utilize that tank as my regulated tank for, you know, I could plug in my impact to it. I could plug in, you know, my Texan to it. And then the cool thing about that inline regulator that I'm getting, 457 Sam LSS, is that you can actually turn the regulator up and down without disconnecting the gun and bleeding the line. It's actually really cool. So like the Huma inline regulator isn't quite as good because number one, it only goes up to 180 bar, and I want more than that for my Texan, but you can't turn down without bleeding the line. So
that's the big one with the gold dial on it.
The one that I'm getting is the hold on a second, let me grab it. It is called the standby. It's called the Regman 2.0. So it's a red one with a big red knob on it. So yeah, I'm good, Tim. I'm good with wind, man. I would rather shoot 100 yards in wind than out of wind because it's much easier to start learning how to shoot in the wind if you've got plenty of wind to shoot in. You know what they say about RMAC is that the wind at RMAC levels the playing field across the board. Doesn't matter how good of a shooter you are. Well, I mean, it does matter a little bit, but the wind is so crazy at Rocky Mountain that, you know, day to day, it's anybody's game. It's
you have to be a good weatherman to
yeah.
determine which way the wind is coming at you, because the wind comes left and right. If it's quartering at you or away from you, it's going to do totally different things downrange for that projectile.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll never forget when I first started shooting long distance, and this is years ago. And all of a sudden, you expect wind to push your pellet left or right. You don't expect the drops, where you're dropping 10 inches low and you're like, what the hell happened there? Well, yeah, it's because you got a downdraft coming down your backside and pushing down on you. So, Anonymous American, it is the Young Hang. Young Hang. And you can find those on Amazon or through Walmart. Either one, doesn't matter which place you order them from. I prefer Amazon just because of the shipping. But just make sure that you get like an extra 2 or 3 year warranty with it, because if something does happen to it, Amazon out. Well, I mean, I've had mine for a long time and I'm still going really, really strong. I've had mine for almost 2 years now and I'm still no issues whatsoever. And I fill up 100 cubic foot tank all the time off of it. So,
well, you probably take care of it too. Check your oil, change your oil, and all that.
Dude, as soon as my oil gets cloudy, I swap it. And definitely recommend that. I have not heard much on the Beeman PCP underlever, but Lou from First State Air Gunner has one on its way, and he's going to be doing a review on it. I've seen him around, but I don't know. But make sure you get yourself a good water oil separator. Something with
that's the key with that. That's the key with those machines. You gotta have clean air going through it.
Well, it's not coming in; it's going out. You just want to make sure that you're not blowing water into your tank or your gun. You want to destroy a gun? Add water.
Yep. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what your drawbacks are, Sam. I've been using Young Hangs for 2 years. Everybody I know has them. I don't have any issues at all with my Young Hang. None. I filled guns, tanks. Never had it overheat. Never had it break down. Never had it leak. And neither of any of my friends. So I'd love to see what your drawbacks are. Yeah, the Hill 3000.
I have a Benjamin Recharge myself, so it's a little on the loud side, but it does what it needs to do. Separates the water rather well.
Bucks here. As soon as we sell our house and we move up north, I'm going to buy like one of the big Alkins, the 220 volt Alkins with the auto shut off, and I mean they're like $3,500. Yeah, gauges. I've had actually one of my gauges go bad too, but yeah, they're cheap to replace. And
I had a gauge on my tank.
You could spend $800 on a compressor and have problems with it, or you can spend $300 on a compressor and have the same problems with it. So I look at it more from an economical standpoint. It's cheap, and you can get a warranty with them. And if anything really goes bad, they swap it right out. Matter of fact, I've heard stories of people having to swap them out through Amazon, and they don't even want the old one back, which you can rebuild. So, and honestly, like I fill my tanks to roughly 5,000 PSI off my Young Hang as well. So I don't usually stop at 300 bar. I usually go up to like 350 bar in my air tanks.
Now, when you figure out what head size that your projectiles like, you gotta get one of them too.
Yeah, I've been looking at them, and I'm going to. So
don't get one yet. You want the one that the other one I showed you. I don't think I have that around here offhand.
I haven't bought any pellet sizers yet.
Okay. There, I bought that one from England that I was telling you about that I showed you. That's like a pen that you just push them through. 5 different dies, and it's clear that, you know, each die does something. But the problem is the guy says that the dies are 4.50, 4.51, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 4.54.
Right.
The problem is none of them are marked, so you don't know which one of them is which. So you have to go and size one and try the others, and by trial and error, you got to write what's on it. But,
right. So Sam Houston, where do you get a replacement after warranty? If you buy it through Amazon and you get the Assurance warranty with it, Amazon will either send you a replacement or they will credit your account back for the dollar amount that you bought your original one, so you can just go ahead and buy another one. So it's not individual parts, but individual parts are cheap too. I mean, they're really super cheap. And you can buy gauges. I bought my replacement gauge on Amazon. I think it was like $12. So to me, I've just, nobody's ever showed me a better system, and I've looked. You know, if somebody wants to try to prove me wrong, by all means. But once again, man, my Young Hang, that thing is a fucking workhorse, man. I don't have any issues with that Young Hang compressor at all. None. Zero. But speaking of aftermarket things, Tom and I were talking earlier, and I know that some of you may or may not have seen this, but there is a gentleman who posted on the FX Airguns YouTube or Facebook page today with a aftermarket plenum that he had bought that exploded. And it was not an FX power plenum. It was an aftermarket. And, you know, that brings up a great point. And listen, and number one, I want to make something very clear. That had nothing to do with FX Airguns. It was a aftermarket part that some guy out there who claims to know what he's doing made and sold as an upgraded part for an FX Impact. I don't know what the details are. I mean, the guy claims that it blew up, but listen, we're only getting one side of the story, so I don't know if it's a parts failure or if it was a mistake that this guy made and that's why his gun blew up. But let me tell you, PCP is nothing to fuck around with. Nothing at all. The guy showed in videos the devastation that what took place, man. It blew a hole through 2 walls, including all the way outside of his home. And that is incredibly, dude, thank God the guy wasn't actually shooting the gun and had his face down by that power plenum. To me, it looks like he has an MK1 and he added the vertical power plenum to it. But keep that in mind, guys, that when, you know, there's a lot of people out there that talk and they talk out of their asses. They don't really know what they're talking about. You know, it's like barrel cleaning, right? There's nothing worse than an ignorant person that claims that you never have to clean an air gun barrel. Either one of two things have happened during that time. Either A, you don't shoot enough, or B, you think that this is a good group at 50 yards, right? So when you're talking about people that are precision shooters, you clean your barrel. And I proved that when I emailed all the top shooters in the world and asked if they clean their barrels, and not one of them said no. Everybody had a little bit different of an answer as far as how often, but the same thing holds true with people that don't know what they're talking about and they're creating dangerous situations. Like this guy in that aftermarket power plenum. You've got a $2,000 gun. Don't skimp out and buy some bullshit, crappy, subpar, or somebody that necessarily doesn't have all the facts in check. and put that on your gun, right? Make sure that you are, buying legitimate products, right? Stuff that's been tested, the stuff that FX puts out, the stuff that people like, Slaw puts out. I mean, those guys, they use FX parts when they upgrade guns. So, just be careful with what you guys are doing. Moist one, I could care less, man. I don't buy for a fact that Matt Dubber doesn't clean his barrel. I don't buy it a bit because I asked every other major shooter in the world because somebody called me out and said that I wouldn't do it. I sent 40 emails to the top shooters, all the people that took first places in RMAC and Extreme Bench Rest, in all those places, and every single person replied to me with an absolutely, we clean our barrels. So just saying, you guys can, I mean, everybody's got an opinion, but when 40 of the top shooters in the world say, you bet we clean our barrels. And as a matter of fact, Frederick from FX even says that you should clean your barrels. Even on his smooth twist barrels, he said that he gets customers all the time that say their guns need to be tuned, and the first thing he says is, do you clean your barrel? So,
well, I spoke to Mike Nitch, who builds the Thomas air rifle platform, and that gun holds probably every 25 meter and 50 meter and 25 yard and 50 yard bench rest national and world record that could be held properly. And he said back in the day, before they had all these newer type barrels, he says we would clean it after every card. And a card is only 25 shots plus your sliders. So they were cleaning them every card or so. He says now, he says modern technology is kicked in, and he says, and now you can maybe get through a day's shooting without cleaning it. But that's still 100, 200 shots. And
my impact, after about 400 rounds, the groups start falling apart, and it's time to clean the barrel. And that's 30 cal. And as soon as I clean the barrel and put 10 more down range, it goes right back to stacking pellets.
Yep.
Yep.
And, every gun is different, too. I mean, I have guns that I clean once a season when I see them starting to go. And there's other guns that I'm constantly cleaning because it's just the way they are.
Yep. My Maverick could go about 1,000 to 1,200 rounds before it needed to be cleaned. But every gun's different. My Crown, when I had that, about every 700-800 rounds, it would be time to clean the barrel. So, but once again, let's not get off topic. Let's just focus on the fact that there was something very bad that happened to an airgun, and and not that I'm not preaching to the choir when I say these things, but guys, we have to be careful. And there's a lot of people out there that are claiming to be making parts for some of these guns that, just listen, there's no regulations that say, it's not like the FDA where if somebody wants to come out with a new food that it has to go through some kind of testing, and they have things that they have to be held accountable for, and there's all these things. I mean, I could go out and buy a lathe and spin a power plenum and be like, this is the best power plenum ever made. But unless it goes through extreme testing where, you're putting 5,000 PSI into these things to ensure that they can hold that 5,000 PSI. And then, you're sticking it on a gun that really it's only going to hold about 1,500 to 1,800 PSI. What a scary thing to have happen, man. I mean, you think about it. I mean, I've got a 100 cubic foot air tank sitting 5 feet to my right that's got over 4,500 PSI in it right now. If that thing was to blow up right now, I'm done. Like there's no way I'm surviving the shrapnel that would let loose from that thing at 5-10 feet away. I mean, it's just one of those crazy things, man, that You know, it was a scary story. And one thing I wanted to make sure that everybody understood is that had nothing to do with FX. That was not an FX part. It isn't. I'm sure that FX didn't say, sure, man, absolutely, we endorse that, because FX makes their own power plenums. So,
use original manufacturer parts.
right. Or at least something that's made by a reputable company. Like, I mean, if you think about it, look at like, you know, like Saber Tactical that makes the dual bottle adapter, right? Do you have any idea how much research and development went into that one piece to ensure that there was nothing that was ever going to happen with that apparatus? I mean, could you imagine sitting at a bench and having the thread strip out of that thing and sending a 580cc bottle flying down range full of air? I mean, how freaking scary would that be?
Which, you know, brings me to
My
a
tank
point.
is carbon fiber wrapped. It's a carbon. Dude, it's an Omega. Of course, it's carbon fiber.
Yeah.
But it's the point that
have your tanks tested on a regular basis too. That's something to do. Even if you fill them up at home, they don't last forever.
Nope. And that's exactly why. You know, I mean, we're supposed to have these things tested. And, you know, and Andrew's, for some reason, off in left field, because I never once said that I was afraid of my tank blowing up, because I know it won't. But I wouldn't go and buy 100 cubic foot tank off somebody that spun one on a lathe and, you know, wrapped it in a little bit of carbon fiber and said, this one's good to go. I mean, Omega put hundreds of thousands of dollars into their testing before they released these tanks, you know?
Well, they were having a problem with some of the cheaper overseas tanks.
Oh, for sure.
Countries.
For sure.
And they were having some issues with them. So,
right. I mean, in order to put DOT on that Omega tank, can you imagine how much money they had to spend to get DOT to say, yep, it's certified, it's good to go? I mean, that's tens of thousands of dollars just to get DOT certified.
Well, probably more than that. It's probably close to 6 digits, if not more.
I would say it could be a couple $100,000. But you're absolutely right. You get what you pay for. So, and once again, listen, I don't have any idea about the manufacturer of that power plenum, because here's one thing that I noticed in the first photograph that I saw is it was sitting right next to its compressor. So if you're filling your gun directly off your compressor, let's just say there's a hypothetical situation, because none of us know what the truth was, and you left that compressor running and the pressure in the tank built up to such a level that it actually blew the regulator up, and now all of that air from your compressor and that was in your tank came rushing past that regulator and then ended up in that power plenum, and then the compressor still didn't get shut off, and it reached such a level that it was completely unsafe for anybody. That could have been what really happened. We don't know if that's really what happened. The guy just claimed as a matter of fact, I don't remember ever reading anything about whether he had it hooked to the compressor or wasn't hooked to the compressor. All we know is that he claims that it was sitting in his laundry room and it blew up. So what makes better sense to me is that I don't know, because I'm not there. I can't examine the gun. I didn't get a chance to, you know, I mean, is the guy going to admit that he left it hooked to the compressor and it built up to 5,500 PSI and it was still cooking and, you know, and the gun blew up? Hell no. He's probably looking at somebody for some kind of lawsuit on why he's injured or whatever else. So it's his word, and all I can do is say, okay, I'll take you for your word. But once again, I don't know. It might not have been the manufacturer's fault. You know, I mean, overpowering a gun is definitely could potentially blow up a regulator. Those regulators only hold back so much air before they're going to fail. Could have been a faulty regulator in the beginning anyway. And I mean, I wouldn't want to put 4,500 PSI into my power plenum on my impact, you know. But
Yep.
it's just the point that we need to be
careful.
We're being careful.
Everyone needs to be conscious. And if anyone out there that is listening to this now or in the future that has one of those, just use caution while using it. Just know
Do
that.
you remember the name of the company?
It was a person's name.
Yeah, and I've never heard of the person. I tried to Google him and stuff. I couldn't get anything to pull up.
And
So
I wrote it down, and I don't have it here in front of me, so I cannot get his name proper.
Andrew, any chance that you know what it was or who it was?
Actually, I could probably tell you right now. If you give me a second, I will 100% tell you.
Oh, Vlad. Yeah, Vlad. And like I said, I don't have any idea about this guy's parts, and like I said, I mean, if this is a one-time thing, and let's just say that Vlad's been around and he's sold hundreds of these things, and there's one guy that had an issue with it, I think there might be another underlying issue other than the fact that somebody made something that just failed. I don't know, and I'm not trying to point fingers is what I'm trying to say.
That is the gentleman's name.
There you go. So, yep, it is what it is. But like I said, I don't know anything about him or his company. I've never heard of him. So for all I know, he's a reputable guy. I just don't know.
From what people say, he is, and I would like to find out. And someone was going to inquire and try to get in touch with him, and I hope someone does, and hopefully he can clear a lot of this up, or talk to the person, or both of them actually, on what really happened and get to the bottom of it, what the cause of it actually was. And that would probably be the best plan of action for everybody here, because there's a lot of people that see that and, they get worried. Well, I bought one of those, and maybe it was nothing related to that. You don't know.
Right. And the worst thing that anybody can do is go add fuel to the fire. I mean, once again, we don't know what the situation is. So, for all those people, because I read some of the comments, people going, oh my God, you should sue. Oh my God, you should do this. No, what should happen is there should be an actual investigation of what happened. I mean, I agree, Andrew. I mean, I can't fathom that somebody makes something for a gun, and this is the first time that we've ever heard anything going wrong. I mean, and it blew it out. The threading didn't let loose. I mean, the bottom just exploded.
It looked like I seen the picture of it, the still, and it did look like it's the perfect example of what happens when you get metal fatigue. Now, if you shoot a lot and that thing gets pressurized, depressurized, pressurized, depressurized, pressure, that's, maybe there was too much stress on it. Maybe it was a bad batch of metal. We don't know.
Right. And I agree, Andrew. Andrew just pointed out something. The rifle must have been laying on its side because the projectile through the wall came off the bottom and shot out. So to me, if my gun's laying on its side prior to getting the apparatus that I have now for filling my gun while it's on its bipod, I'm filling my gun. So it just kind of makes sense that it was probably overfilled. The regulator let loose, and a lot of air pressure went to a power plenum that should have never seen that kind of pressure. I mean,
which brought me to a comment I made earlier, is a lot of these aftermarket, a lot of these production guns now come with a 4,500 PSI rated tank on them to get more shots per fill. And in doing that, I think that some of the lower regulated end parts they might now be, but in their earlier stages might not have been rated for 4,500 psi. They were only rated to the regulated pressure, which brings me to a point where every part, in my opinion, every part in that gun should be rated for 4,500 pounds, just in case a part fails and you get that 4,500 pounds in an area that shouldn't have 4,500 pounds.
So 250 bar.
Yeah.
So 250 bar is what? 42 or no, not even. It's 30, 36, 50 psi.
200 bar is about 3,000 psi.
Right. So 250 bar is roughly 3,600 psi. That is what all FX impacts, with the exception of the new M3, are capable of doing. And that's only if you buy the additional bottle that's capable of 300 bar. So I know that my bottle personally says that it's like tested to 4,500 psi, and it's a 250 bar fill. But those regulators are also, you know, they're moderated to 250 bar. You know, I mean, that's the most working that it should really be at any point. So if somebody's overfilling their gun, or maybe he screwed in his regulator and he blew an O-ring and he had reg creep. You know, reg creep could have caused the same problem. You know, I mean, if you let the gun sit and sit and sit and you've got, you know, 200 plus or 250 plus bar in your gun, that's going right to it too. So, you know, like I said, none of us know what really happened. We've got a guy who obviously, I mean, the only thing we do know for sure is that his power plenum blew up. But none of us are going to know the real truth, because that guy, if he did leave his gun on his compressor and he overfilled it, he's not going to come out and say that. We all know that. Yeah. None of us would.
I would. I
would too. I would own it and be like, "Oh, dude, you guys want to see something fucking crazy? I was upstairs taking a shit and heard my gun blow up, and guess what? Whoops."
I'm sure it's happened. Now that brings me to something else, where DOT standards, not only DOT standards, but general engineering standards when it comes to pressure in the United States, is they're tested at least 3 times more than what they're supposed to handle.
Yep.
If you have, like, say, I don't know, just pick a company, a Crossman Marauder, Benjamin Marauder. That tube is designed to hold 3,000 psi. That tube is tested in excess of 9,000 psi in order to conform to engineering standards.
Right.
When your air tanks are up for hydro test, they test those at around 7,500 psi for a 4,500 psi tank. When they're first made in a big batch, what they'll do is the DOT, when they slap that sticker on the side of an Omega tank or Great White or Scott's a perfect example, a very big company. Firemen trust their lives with that apparatus. They'll pick several out of a production batch. They'll pull 2 or 3 of them, push them to around 15,000 psi for 1 minute, and then they'll exceed that 15,000 pounds until the tank actually explodes, just to show that it goes past the required amount.
For sure. So Sam just brought up a good point. He's saying he guesses bad threading, but Sam, not in this case, because the power plenum itself did not separate from the gun where it's threaded in. It blew the bottom of the power plenum off, and there's no threading where it blew up at.
There is threading at the bottom of the power plenums. There is a threaded piece that goes onto the back of that, onto the very bottom of it.
Yeah, I'm just saying by the picture of it. Well, I guess, yeah, technically it could have been the bottom cap that was screwed on too. Yeah, I guess maybe it could have been, But once again, and then Rob brought up, shouldn't the burst disc blow first? Well, let me tell you a little story about the first guy that I ever met that had a young hang, and he was popping burst discs. This is a couple years ago, and I was talking to a guy, and when I was looking to get into mine, and the guy said, dude, if you start blowing burst discs, just go out and buy yourself, the right screw and just plug that thing up. Yep.
That's how you get hurt.
That is how you get hurt. Burst discs are very important.
I blew a burst disc on my little pony tank that I keep with me for field target matches. I got a 90 cubic inch Ninja, and I filled it to 4,500, and it had a 5,000 psi burst disc on it. One day I went to a match, and apparently I left it in my car, and it blew the burst disc out.
Whoops. Hot and cold expansion, buddy. Woo!
And I went, and nothing came out. Oh, I got 0 in here. I must have blown the burst disc. And yes, I did.
Yep.
Well, you know what? That brings me to another point. For safety purposes, maybe more guns, or they should start incorporating a burst disc on these guns, so that there's no way that something like that could really happen with any gun. Maybe it should be a requirement.
Well,
and it wouldn't be a bad idea when you really look at it as a safety.
Part of me is like, yeah, but the other part of me is kind of going off what you said earlier, because you're absolutely right. Listen, I fill my 100 cubic foot to 5,000 psi. I do that because I get a couple extra fills. I know it's safe because if you look on the tank, it'll actually tell you what, like how high you can fill them, and the burst disc built into the tank. So I've never had an issue with it. And I know that my tank personally, my burst disc's going to go way before that tank lets loose. But there's more air. Andrew, I fill my Avenger to 300 bar all the time. Right. So, with that being said, listen, all I can say is, if I was a gambling man on this subject, I would say there's more to the story than what's been let on. And that's just me, because how many impacts are out there? Hundreds of thousands of impacts are out there. And I have never, ever, ever heard of another one doing that. So,
again, like you said, it's not FX.
Right.
It's not FX.
Right.
So,
right. And that's true.
2% of the people out there have these. And as you stated before, it is an older model, and that's the only one that would be vertical like that.
And you know what? And Thomas, that's a great point. The gauges are actually designed to burst if they are overpressured. And I believe you when you say that, because I know that that's how I blew the first gauge on my young hang. And it did leak out before the burst disc blew, and it was because I was filling my tank to 5,000 psi. So once again, yeah, absolutely. And I would agree that even the gauges on these PCPs, they can only take so much pressure before they're going to crack and they're going to let loose. We've all had crack gauges. We've had to replace gauges because they go bad. Hydraulic and pneumatic. That's exactly right. So
I use hydraulics all the time at work, and the power of hydraulics and high pressure air is, people take it for granted. I mean, I use hydraulic punches in the electrical industry to punch boxes out by hand. We got motorized ones. We have pipe benders that are hydraulic, and the amount of power that these things have is it's incredible.
So listen, at the end of the day, the moral of this story is stick with OEM parts and follow the manufacturer's suggested pressures, and you won't have any issues. At least you shouldn't. If you do, then then that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. But these companies out there are very well versed in what they do. And, you know, I'm not afraid to be around any of my guns. I mean, I'm surrounded by PCP guns right now. There's 2 right here above me. Tanks are 100% filled, and I don't have an ounce of fear of those guns letting loose or exploding. Or, I mean, I wouldn't want to be in here if there was a fire. You know, I mean, because sooner or later, it's probably going to let loose. Something's going to let loose. You know, whether it's the melt, something else. But
if nothing else, for down the road in the future, when we do find out from reliable sources, hopefully from the sources that it came from, you know, both the manufacturer and the person that had this incident happen. Hopefully we can gather enough information where we'll have a clearer picture on what actually happened.
And we might never know. You know, I mean, you know, once again, if I was injured by something and I caused the problem, and, you know, I'm just thinking outside the box, and I'm thinking, like, what would I do if I accidentally forgot and blah, 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 and this and that? I probably wouldn't be. I mean, depending upon the guy's mindset, you know, I mean, I would man up and say, oh, I fucked up. But not everybody's going to man up and say that they fucked up. They're going to make up stories about what didn't happen or what did happen. And, you know, and they're going to give their side of the story. And maybe the guy's looking to sue somebody. I don't know. But, you know, once again, if you just adhere by the manufacturer's suggestions and you just treat these guns with the respect that they deserve, you're not going to have any problems. And stick with OEM parts. Stick with reputable companies, not some fly-by-night guy. And like I said, once again, I don't know anything about Vlad. For all I know, this guy is just as good as Ken Hicks, and I've just never heard of him. I mean, if that's the case, then, you know, then I don't know. But at the end of the day, we don't know. So, you know, it is what it is. It's an unfortunate situation. Thank God nobody was killed. Thank God that the guy wasn't permanently disfigured. At least it didn't appear to be that he was permanently disfigured. Certainly looks like he was injured, but, you know, kind of crazy.
Yep.
Right. Sam, I agree. I prefer to test it 1,000 times before I become the guinea pig. And that's why I use OEM parts. You know, I mean, I'm a sponsored shooter from Crawford and Lip, but none of the parts that Crawford and Lip supply me with have anything to do with air pressure. You know, they're purely aesthetics onto the guns themselves. You know, I mean, with the exception of, I mean, really none of it. I mean, even their pellet probe block doesn't have anything to do with the PSIs in there. So, yeah, exactly. I think my compressor would actually blow up before it would blow up my bottle. So, very good point.
Don't mess with high pressure air.
No, don't.
And you know what? In the few videos that I do in disassembling and assembling something, you'll see me say it 10 times before I even touch it. Do not do any of this with any air in the gun.
Yep.
If you have a doubt, don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. Leave it for someone else. And, you know, or if you're going to tackle something yourself, degas the gun.
Speaking of, so here's another one. If you're working on an air gun, make sure it's unloaded. Now, ask me why I could say that. All right. So, as you guys know, I do a lot of air gun repair work, a lot. And I was working on a Falcon, which is a gun that was predecessor to FX guns. And it had leaks. And I was like, okay. And it got sent to me, and I took it apart, and there was no air in the tank. It is a PCP gun, and no air in the tank whatsoever. Went through, all the O-rings were so dry rotted that literally when I took them apart, they crumbled off of the parts that they were on. So I replaced all the seals, put the gun back together, filled it full of air, held air, everything was great. Went to give it a test fire, and wouldn't you know, the guy actually had a pellet in it. And I blew a hole right through one of my gun cases and narrowly missed the gun that was inside. So just so one of those elementary things that, you know, we should all have in the top of our mind, but you know, it is what it is. Take care, John.
And Thomas made a good point too. Maybe someone used the wrong grease. You know what?
That's right.
If you use the wrong stuff, putting with high pressure stuff, that if it was a petroleum product, yeah, there's probably a dozen different possibilities that could have caused
exactly.
So until we find out, and I'm going to make a point of staying up on this to find out what actually happened, and hopefully I'll be able to get some information from both sides that had this issue happen.
Right. So our ranch airgun said, what would you say the best PSI level to leave in a tank when storing a gun? I leave all of my guns 100% filled every single time that I leave them alone. And I do that because of one reason. I want to know if my guns are leaking. So, like, you know, all my guns, I top them off before I put them away. That way, I know that if I come back and I take a gun out, and let's say it's a bar fill tank, and I take it out and it's down at 75 bar, I know that that gun's leaking. So because I
do the same thing.
Yep, exactly. Those guns are made to work at that working pressure. So if you have a 200 bar gun or a 250 bar gun or a 235 bar and you leave it there, you are not running any risk of having any issues whatsoever with that gun.
And it keeps all the O-rings expanded in place also.
Exactly. And it'll keep all your O-rings in the right way as well. Yeah. Yep, Tim, that's exactly what we just said. Yep, all your guns filled to the max. Manufacturers fill recommendations, and like I said, it's for two reasons. One, because that's its working pressure, and two, because I want to make sure that my guns aren't leaking.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I don't buy carbon fiber tanks off Amazon. Listen, I spent $800 on that 100 cubic foot Omega, and it was worth every freaking penny. It's one of those things that I just don't want to fuck around and find out.
Same thing with mine. I got the what is mine? Mine's an Airhog.
Yep.
But yep. A lot of problems with some of the foreign 4,500 supposedly PSI tanks.
Exactly. And a lot of those ones that are sold on Amazon are not DOT certified.
No.
And not that if you get pulled over, some cop's going to know and he's going to look, but you never know. You could run into the one guy. Yeah. But I will say that I'm either going to buy another Omega for my regulator, my external regulator for hooking to my Texan and my impact when I'm bench shooting, when I'm testing, because you can't hook to a tank when you're shooting. But either that or I'm going to buy a Great White. I've been looking at the Joe Brancato stuff. The reason that I like the Omegas, and I'll show you guys, is because the new ones, not only do I love the gauge that's on this thing, this is the new G3 gauge, but the hose itself can't be knotted, can't be tied. It's extremely and this is something that they actually rave about. This hose is extremely flexible. So not only with the G3 gauge, and not only that, but the handle on top, this tank is by far the nicest tank that I've ever owned. And I've yet to see one that compares.
Yep. Well, I like my Airhog, and my next one is probably going to be a Great White down the road.
Or the HP3 gauge. That's it. HP3.
Yep. I bought the gauge because mine came with a gauge on it that was like a little bit bigger than the gauge on your gun,
Right.
and it was basically useless, and it ended up breaking on me, and I ended up getting a replacement from Mr. Joe Brancato, and I think it was one of those. And it
Joe
was
doesn't sell these gauges. These are Omega. But the other cool thing about the Omega is that it's got a small gauge on the back that tells me the pressure in my tank. Right. So I don't have to use the plug to, figure it out. This is actually my BSA.
Yeah, I seen that. Yeah. But that big gauge on the front that's oil filled, that's the gauge I got from Joe, and best thing I could have done. Very accurate. Would recommend them any day of the week. But
well worth the $800.
Yep.
And like I said, I mean, honestly, if I can get another one of these, then this is the tank. I like the Omega tanks and the HP3 setup, especially with the big knob on the top. It makes it very easy to fill. I don't really care for the push button releases. I like the knob to release my air pressure in my line.
Yeah, I like those.
It is what it is. But once again, by far the best tank I've ever owned. Take care of
my air hog has that too. The actual bleed screw on it.
So yeah, the only other thing that I've been thinking about getting is Best Fitting actually makes a connector, or actually you would replace this piece here, and it actually has a valve down inside of it. So this is a fast fill tank. So if I grab this thing and just crank it open, I mean, it almost came out of my hand. I mean, it's that powerful. So they actually make one with a valve down inside where you can adjust how much air it lets out. So with this thing, man, you barely crack it. And I mean, you can hot fill a gun in a quick second with this tank, which is kind of nice when you've got a new gun, if it's low on air and it requires that fast fill to seat the valve. It is nice when it comes to that, but it's
nice to slow fill also. If you want to take your time with a gun and just trickle it in there so it doesn't heat up. And
well, that's what I'm saying. Best Fitting makes that one where you can tune it down. Yeah. That way you can slow fill your gun, because I mean, it'll take my impact from like 150 bar to 250 like that. And I mean, it's hot, and nobody wants to do that. It's just, but it'll happen.
Well, so when I fill with my air hog, it's like a valve that takes a lot to let it out, and it takes a lot to close it. So I can regulate it with that valve. I can trickle that thing in so that it just slowly goes up, or I can just go a little bit more and that thing just goes wham.
Yep.
So I have the control to do it.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yep.
Whatever
Mike, where are you located at? Because you must be overseas or something. Because 98 cubic foots aren't $1,000 over here in the States. But so you must.
I don't know anyone that makes a 98. Who makes a 98?
Air Venturi does.
Do they? Because I know that they make an 88.
Dude, the Great White is actually a 97 or 98 cubic foot tank.
Is it? I thought it was an 88.
Yeah. No, it's 98. My Omega is 100 cubic foot, though. It's actually 100 cubic foot.
Well, the next tank I get, it's going to be a big one.
Let me tell you, if I take this 100 cubic foot, and true story, I hooked up to an external regulator and shot 60 rounds through my Texan, and it barely made a dent in the tank. Like, barely made a dent in the tank. Yeah, Andrew, I might actually even pick one up this weekend. It depends. I'm just waiting for that external regulator to come into high pressure pneumatics. And that's why I'm saying, like, he's got a Joe Brancato in there, and I thought about just saying, fuck it, just give me that one. But anyway, with that being said, it is 9:40. We've been on here for a little over an hour, and we're going to go ahead and cut it short. Once again, I did tell you guys I was going to try to keep these things to an hour, and we've been going on an hour and 10 minutes. So with that being said, I'm Moose. That's Tom Holland. And this is Airguns, Michigan. And Tom will be back next Tuesday. And we will have Moist One. He'll be on sometime this week with me, and we'll talk. Who knows? We'll talk about something. But either way, man, you guys have a great night. God bless you, and be good to each other.
Stay safe, guys.
Be safe. High pressure is nothing to